Welcome to the Confidently Balance Your Hormones podcast. My name is Dee Davidson, and I'm a hormone health expert, master mindset coach, and multiple wellness business entrepreneur. I'm obsessed with helping you experience hormone balance, confidence, self-love, and live a life full of joy. I know we're about to have so much fun together, so thank you so much for pushing play today. And now let's begin. Welcome to another episode of Confidently Balance Your Hormones. This is your guide, Dee Davidson. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Chris Rice, a powerhouse entrepreneur, devoted mom, and the visionary behind ChillPod, a luxury cold immersion system designed specifically for women. Like so many of us, Chris has spent years balancing business, family, constant pressure to do it all. But she found herself struggling when it came to prioritizing her own well-being. That's a story we hear all the time. So her journey into cold therapy started with hesitation. She hated cold water. She resisted it for months. And then she finally took the plunge, literally, into a do-it-yourself type of adventure. And something incredible happened. Just 2 minutes in the cold transformed her mental clarity, energy, and sense of purpose. Now she's on a mission to help women reset their bodies and minds in the most efficient, powerful ways possible. No extra time required. And in this episode, Chris is sharing her personal story, the science behind cold therapy, and how women can use it as a simple yet transformative tool to support mental and physical well-being. As always, this is not medical advice. Always, check in with your doctor before you try anything new or you have any health concerns. And with that being said, welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Dee, for having me. I'm super excited for our conversation.
Me too, because I get questions about cold therapy all the time, and I'm definitely not an expert in it. I have dabbled in it myself. I know there are many health benefits, and this will be just great to be able to refer people to this episode to learn more from an expert. So tell us a little bit about your journey into cold therapy. I know you said you started with a lot of resistance. What made you finally take the plunge, and what was your first experience like? What was that all about? Like, why did you do it?
I know it. Everybody hates cold water, myself included. Like, let's just lead with that. It's not appealing. It doesn't sound fun. And so I really came at it honestly from like a place of desperation of just needing to have something that would help me reset my energy and feel better. And I didn't have a lot of time. So what I had done is over like a decade's time, I was supporting my young daughter in her mental health journey. And it really helped me see where I was struggling myself and be honest with myself of where things were hard and I needed to have a different way of doing things. And so I have a pretty good sense of curiosity in life. So I would dabble in pretty much anything. And I found a lot of practices that would help me: meditation, movement, clean eating, all of these things, but they all take a lot of time and they don't give you an instant change for the most part. And so
True.
I was struggling because I knew like I had this toolbox of things that I could do. And in reality, I literally could not do them in a day. And so I was like, I don't know where to go from here. And so I have a friend who has very similar to me, like curious about anything, will try anything once. And she was like, I really think you need to try cold plunging. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not going to do that. So we went back and forth on that for a while. And until finally she was like, seriously, Chris, like, what do you have to lose? Like, just try it and then see. And so it was from that sense of like, okay, I'm not going to put all this pressure on it. Maybe I like it. Maybe I hate it. Either way is totally fine, but I'm going to try. And so I secretly bought a horse trough. I put it in our backyard because I was like, I'm just going to go like the lowest budget, lowest barrier to entry to try, and filled it with cold, hose water, made my own ice, did all the things. And she was totally right. The first time I tried it, I was like, whoa, I did not know I could actually feel this way. And it wasn't even that cold. That's the wild thing. Like, I hadn't really dabbled in any of the like cold showers and things like that. I just really hated that. So I was like, this water isn't even like where I am now, but it was enough to jumpstart me helped me feel different. And that literally just kickstarted where I am today. And I'm so grateful I finally did it.
I think that's lovely that you made it so simple because I know that people, they research what is the best container for this cold plunge in my yard and all of these things. And I
Totally.
see people, I'm in the Boston area,
Yeah.
just going out into lakes and things. I don't know what your take
Yep.
on that is. Do you have any feedback before we move on in regard to just walking into the ocean or a cold
Yeah.
body of water? Is that
A
safe?
100%. No, I think it's amazing. The only thing that I think of just being conscious of is how cold is that water really? Are you going to be able to withstand that? And I think we'll probably go more into this, but I think a lot of the power of the practice is also tuning into your intuition and really listening to your body in that experience. So if you go in the ocean, in that natural body of water, amazing, but really listen to yourself as to when is the right time to get out. And I think that is such a more powerful takeaway in the end because you're tuning into your own guidance system and realizing that throughout the day, not just in that moment. It kind of like starts that practice for you and then it plays out in every other area of your life.
Wonderful. I love that doing the outdoor thing, whether it be in this trough or
Mhm.
lake or the ocean, you're also getting the grounding, the earthing, the sunshine, all of the things that
100%.
as humans we have gotten so far away from. And when I talk with my clients about functional lab testing or their hormones or their circadian rhythm, they
Mhm.
want to know what's wrong with them on the labs, or they want to know the supplement to take. And it always comes back to these foundational things. And what I'm finding is more and more we're just indoors, we're not moving our body, we're not getting sunlight, and those things can have a huge impact. So not only are you doing the cold therapy, but you're also getting some of those other natural things that we're totally lacking these days. So that's awesome. I love that.
I totally agree. And I think that's a lot of the reason that for me, I just made it a part of my morning ritual because
Uh-huh.
I'm in Oregon. So, like, it's rainy here a lot and stuff. So,
Sure.
getting outside in the morning is honestly not that appealing. But if I
Uh-huh.
can get out, get a little bit of sunlight, even if it's through the clouds while I'm doing the plunge outside, like, it's a win win. And, like you said, it really does balance your circadian rhythm when you do that.
Mhm. I've seen a lot of cold immersion talked about and marketed when we talk about elite athletes.
Hmm.
A lot of people might think, well, I don't really work out or I'm not an elite athlete. Why do you feel that this is specifically a great thing for women to do? How does it benefit women?
Yeah. Well, I can honestly just speak from my own experience on that. And I think that was a lot of my hesitation, right? Because you see these just supercharged athletes sitting in entire buckets of ice. Like everything about that feels
Mhm.
unrelatable, right? And so I think that's a lot of my own personal mission of just helping women get over that bridge to just try cold water in whatever fashion that is and really like being playful and curious about what that can look like
Uh-huh.
because I'm not an elite athlete. I would consider myself an athlete because I'm active, but other than that, like I don't check any of those boxes. I'm not a dude, any of those things. So
Right, right.
I think the more that we can at least just hear female voices in this space and realize, like, oh, she's just a mom with two kids who are eating breakfast at the table while she goes and steps out in her swimsuit, plunges, and comes back and like finishes packing their backpacks for the day. Like, let's just
Right.
normalize what that can look like. And it doesn't have to be fancy, or it can be. Like, there's so many different ways to explore it.
Yes. And so specifically, how can this help women's health or hormones and things like
Yeah.
that?
Well, I think like for myself, I'm in that bracket of perimenopause ages.
Oh
And
yeah.
so
Fun
good
times.
times, good times. And so, I think we're more and more aware of the need to balance our hormones as best that we're able to. And it really comes down to balancing your nervous system, of course. And so, when you're able to get yourself in cold water, you're training your nervous system of how to respond to stresses throughout the day. And at the root of it, I really feel like that's the magic of the practice because what you're doing just for anybody who maybe doesn't know, when you're submerging yourself in the cold water, you're making the choice to put your body in fight or flight for a really
Uh-huh.
short time. And
Uh-huh.
so you know it for a finite amount of time. And more than anything, you're training your body how to come out of that stress.
Uh-huh.
So you're able to recalibrate yourself and flush out the stress in your body, boost your dopamine, and come out feeling literally like you hit a reset button. And so the more that you're able to train your nervous system how to handle stress in that environment, you can now handle it with your family. You can now handle it in the office. You can handle it in all the different areas. And I honestly, I didn't even realize that until much later. I didn't realize how I was like training myself to manage myself and show up differently in all
Uh-huh.
areas.
Wow. So it sounds like, because I have a lot of clients, and I think that even with younger even kids, a lot of kids on
Yeah.
anxiety medication and things like
Yeah.
that. But a lot of the women in my practice, they do struggle with stress and anxiety and burnout. And it sounds like this cold therapy definitely helps with these challenges. And it sounds like they could quickly see the benefits. Are you seeing that a lot of women are reporting pretty immediate benefits, or what can people expect as far as results?
Totally. I think that's kind of the magic of it is you don't have to wait 6 weeks to feel differently. You literally feel different when you come out of it. So
Mhm.
when you think about it that way, I think it also helps bridge that, space between discomfort of not wanting to do it and being curious of wanting to, because what else can we really do that instantly you'll feel the effects of it? And it might not be dramatic, but maybe it is. And so everybody that I talk to has, a personal and unique experience to it. But I don't think I've ever talked to anyone who's been like, no, like I felt the same afterwards. I've never had that conversation.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. What about women who might be going, oh my gosh, like you said, I hate cold
Mm,
water. They're hesitant, they're intimidated by the
yeah.
idea of cold plunging. What's the best way for us to ease into it? How long should we stay in at first? How long do
Yeah.
we aim for long term? What's a sustainable practice?
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, like it goes back to listening to your own body and kind of knowing what is your threshold, what feels right. A couple things to think about is playing around with temperature and playing around with duration, right? So you've got both to be able to work with. So cold therapy is anything from 40 to 60-degree water. So that's a really wide range. And
Mhm.
you know, right now we're talking in March. I would say my hose water is like in the 40s.
Okay.
So, it's well warmer than hose water. So if you turned your shower not even the coldest, that's getting the benefits of it. And then it could be anything from 10 seconds to a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So just kind of figuring out, I would always start at a little higher temperature for a really short amount of time and then just kind of work your way into it. And at that, if you're like, oh, I didn't feel anything, then maybe, you either lower the temperature a little or you try and do it for a little longer. But I would just encourage people to play around with either ending your shower cold, which I'm going to be totally transparent.
Hate that. I hate
I think it's
it.
literally the worst. I think it is so much harder than sitting in cold water. Even like this morning was like 40 degrees outside, and I was sitting in my bath and I was like, oh my God, it's really cold out here. Still better than a cold shower. So
Right.
that if you hate it too, don't like stop there. There's lots of other ways. But I also think about just trying one body part. So you could have
Okay.
a little bowl of cold ice water, put your hands in it, put your feet
Okay.
in it, even do your face. You
Okay.
could do any of that, and you're going to experience a version of those results. So just think about it in different ways or maybe you're like, okay, it's all or nothing. I'm going to either get in or not. Just try it for a short amount of time. Make sure that you're feeling okay. If you gasp, if it's like it takes your breath away, it's all totally normal and you're going to learn to breathe through it and be in that space.
What are some signs of, okay, let me get out? What are some warning
Yeah,
signs just so we can give people the red flags and they don't push themselves too hard at
for
first?
sure. For sure. I think, like shivering and goosebumps is obviously normal, but if you're
Mhm.
getting to the point where you're like, inside my like especially feet and hands are just so sensitive. If your feet are literally like, oh, they feel intensely cold, get out. Like
Okay.
that's your sign. I think hands too. I honestly keep my hands out, so I'll have the water up to my wrists, but I keep my hands out because they take so many hours to recover from the cold. It's
Okay.
just not worth it for me.
Okay.
And then I think another sign can be maybe outside the moment if you're again like, oh my gosh, my feet have been numb for a long time, say an hour.
Mm,
Push it too far. Now I know, like warm yourself
mhm,
up.
mhm.
Um, but a lot of the benefits do come from naturally warming up. That's the other thing is like do the plunge and then give yourself an hour to just naturally let your body raise. Like put
Mhm.
on socks, warm yourself up that way. But if you go and just hop in a hot shower, you actually kind of flush out those results. So
Mhm.
just something
Okay,
to think
good to
about
know.
there.
That was going to be my next question. I know that you, and I don't know, whatever you're comfortable sharing, so this
Yeah.
is part of your morning routine. And I do believe
Mhm.
that habit stacking, so not just saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this every day," and then you're trying to find space, but
Totally.
making it sustainable and stacking it with a habit that you already have. That was going to be my next question is, so you do this cold therapy and then, you're saying naturally warming, but are there other things you do before that you habit stack or after that are beneficial or work together?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, it might sound super silly, so take it for what it is, but I usually don't change out of my pajamas until I get in my swimsuit.
I like
So
that.
so that's kind of like because I actually never really thought about it till you just asked that. And I was like, no, that's what I do. Because if I put on my clothes, it's just somehow like, oh, it's another step I have to do. So I go from PJs to a swimsuit and hop out there. And I usually either try and do that like while my kids are very slowly making their way out of bed, or I've like popped in their breakfast and they're sitting down and I jump out and come back. Those are kind of my ways, my cues that like these times are good windows for me
Okay.
personally. And then I'll always get dressed. And then my stack is usually that I try and then do my workout, even if it's like 15 or 20 minutes, if it's going
Mhm.
for a walk or lifting some weights, I'll try and do that maybe within a half hour or so of doing my plunge
Okay.
because I always feel my strongest right after it. So I kind of try and harness that energy, do my workout. And then by that point, I'm like, okay, I'm all warmed up. I can shower and do my day at this point.
Sure. Speaking of kids, I know you said that you learned a little bit more about this through your daughter's journey. Do your kids do the cold therapy and is it safe for kids and how do you incorporate it with
Yeah.
children?
Yeah, that's a great question. Certainly is one where like your kid best. So kind of gauge that. It's very interesting. So my younger one is a hard no. She will not do it. She's 10. So she is like, no,
Okay.
no part of it. But my older one, she definitely feels better when she does it. But there's an interesting dynamic of, oh, that's something that mom does. Like she won't do it for me. But
Mm-hmm.
if times that I've been out of town and she might feel dysregulated and my husband's home, he's like, babe, just go hop in the plunge and then come back. And she does it without like even
Hmm.
hesitation.
Isn't it funny
So
how our kids do that?
yeah, totally. So I've stopped asking. And so I'm like, she'll do it when she wants to do it. But yeah, I was gone for a week one time. And I think she did it every single night when I was gone. And she slept great.
Awesome.
She felt good. So I think, especially kids that are really active, play sports, things like that, it's almost
Mhm.
more a part of their vernacular. Like it's just kind of part of their routines or maybe part of their sports teams, even.
Mhm.
That's not our world, but from a mental health perspective, I know that I can see her. It grounds her. It brings her back to neutral, and she definitely is able to like flush out the worry and anxiety and rumination when she's able to
Mhm.
do that.
And how long would you say she usually would go in for?
She is funny because she's all over the board. Where I'm pretty regimented, and actually, my husband and I both like we have our song or I have my mantras that I like to do. So I know it's like 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. She'll go from sometimes she'll do like 1 minute, and then other times she's like, I did it for five. I'm like, okay,
Random.
random. That's a really long time, but okay. But she also will kind of like pop herself more. So she's like half in the water. She plays around, she flits around.
That's great though. That sounds like it could be a great tool for for your entire family. You said your husband does it,
100%.
your kids do it, so everyone can kind of get involved in that. I know that my kids, I'm
Yeah.
divorced at their dad's house. They have the actual official like cold plunge tub thing or
Yeah.
whatever they have,
Yeah.
and they've told me that they do it there. And I think it's
That's awesome.
the like excitement of, oh, I'm doing this thing and it's
For
cold and they're both
sure.
right. But it is a good practice, it sounds like, for the entire family to participate in regularly. Do you do this every day?
I do not. So I would say I aim for like 4 to 5 times a week, ideally. I read a research study recently that I really liked the way that they suggested it. They, instead of like an aim for a number of times per week, it was more like the time under, like in water per week. So she recommended 11
Uh-huh.
minutes throughout the whole week. So however you want to break that up. And I don't know, I just like that approach of make it work for you. If you want to do these 30-minute little segments, great. If you want to do 4 minutes a couple times, awesome. Like it, make it yours. Hmm.
That's great advice. Now, this chill pod, what is that? Let's kind of wrap right? The whole thing is you found this cold therapy, you love it, your family's using it, and then you become an entrepreneur. I don't know if you were an entrepreneur prior to this, but this chill
Yeah.
pod, what is that all
The
about?
chill pod was definitely born from my cold plunging experience. So as I sat in my very special Rubbermaid trough, I would think about like, how do I get more women in cold water and how do I make this an experience that I would really enjoy? And so when I thought about that, it always would come back to the human experience of like, how do we elevate our mind, body, spirit, everything that is all a part of this experience, anyways, and really up level that, make it beautiful so that you want to go to it. You have something that you really appreciate and that makes you feel good. So yeah, it has been a wild journey. I was an entrepreneur before in the coaching space, but this, yeah, I have stepped into making my own product, and it's actually going to launch here for pre-sale very shortly. And
Okay.
it's really exciting. It feels incredible to actually see an idea from my head come into real life that you can actually sit in and experience. It's still kind of wild to me.
Yeah. Super fun. So where can people find this
Yeah.
pre-launch website and learn
Yeah.
more about
So you can
this
go
chill
on
pod?
Instagram. We're at thechillpod.co. And same thing for the URL. So if you want to go check out our website, you can find out everything about it, see videos of it, all that good stuff. And that is also at thechillpod.co.
Awesome. We'll drop all those
Sweet.
links in the show notes, of course. So, to wrap up our episode, is there anything else that you think people must know or learn about the chill pod or the cold therapy? Is there anything we've left out or anything that you want to
I
leave
think I
people
would
with?
just leave you with the thought of I really believe everyone can do this. And I really believe that it can be that missing link for you in bridging from where you are today to how you really want to feel. And so if you can like think about that more than the resistance of how much you hate cold water, think about what's on the other side of that. And it might completely open your world to things that you could have never expected. So hold on to that and just give it a try in small baby steps. And I would love to hear how it goes.
Okay,
Excellent.
you've convinced me. I don't know about the cold shower, but I know that I go to this place in Rhode Island. It's called
Mm,
Rafa Yoga and Spa. And it's a really cool place. They have different sauna rooms,
cool.
charcoal sauna, turmeric
Mm,
sauna. They have a Himalayan salt, and they do have the
yeah,
cold plunge tubs, but I go in everything else and I avoid the cold. So you've just inspired me because I go once a month
do.
and
I
I'll
want to
let you know,
know.
Chris, how my experience is. I am going to go in. So thank you so much for your inspiration and your knowledge today. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Confidently Balancing Your Hormones. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to share it with a friend and also hit follow at the top of this podcast. If you have a couple of minutes and you can leave a quick review, it will help other women in need find this podcast. You can find me on Instagram at confidently_love_yourself. I would love to stay connected and hear from you.